Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Today, I want to talk to you about something that I have come to value more the older and hopefully wiser that I get. I call it volume control. Volume control. Here's what I mean. Every situation in your life and in your business has a volume knob. A dispute or a deal or a disagreement or a decision that you're contemplating or that's been nagging at you, these things all have volume knobs. Some of these things deserve to be loud, very loud. So the volume knob is turned up. Most of them, however, do not deserve that sort of treatment. For a long time, I can tell you that I don't think I really knew the difference. I used to think being right was always worth fighting for, and that maybe walking away meant losing. I think, again, as I progress through life, that that's just not my mindset quite as much as maybe it used to be. Not really thinking that way anymore. I'm going to give you a few examples. Example number one, let's say a legal situation comes up, it's a lawsuit. There's some sort of dispute over a contract. Now, there's a real cost to fighting it, and it's not just the money you'd lay out to fight it. It's actually the mental space. It's the nights that you spend working through the case or replaying things in your mind. It's the energy you're not putting into the thing or the things that you actually care about. So today, I now ask a different question. And the question isn't, am I right? But instead, it's, what does it cost me to keep fighting? Because a lot of the time, the smart move is to just pay it off or settle it, just put it to bed and move on. And to me, that's turning down the noise, that's turning down the volume. Second example, there's a debate. You have a debate over who's right and who's wrong. Someone does wrong by you, and you want them to know it. You want to set the record straight. I've learned to just let it go. And it's not because I'm a pushover. I don't think that that's the case. I think it's because the noise, again, isn't worth it. Being right in an argument that nobody's actually keeping score of, that's not a win. It's actually a big distraction. And the third example I'll give you, an investment that maybe feels a little bit off. So, in other words, the deal looks really good on paper, but something about it means that you'll be thinking about it too often. You see some sort of risk. You're going to constantly be checking on it. You're going to be second guessing your math. And to me, that's your answer. That's a scenario where you have to turn the volume down. In other words, pass on the investment. Go find the deal that gives you peace of mind, lets you sleep at night. Peace of mind is actually part of the return. It just doesn't show up on the spreadsheet with all the other numbers. Here's the pattern I've actually noticed though. Every time I've lowered the volume on something, be it that I stopped spending time on it, I stopped feeding it my attention, or I moved that attention, somewhere better. Every time I've done this, almost every time, it almost always works out in my favor. It plays out favorably for me. Not just sometimes, like almost always, when I choose to turn down the volume by taking some of the actions I described earlier, it almost always works out in the long run. So if it works so well, if turning down the volume works as well as I just described, why is it so hard to do it? And for me, on this one, the answer is actually pretty easy. It's one word, and that word is ego. Ego is actually what keeps the volume up. Ego is the voice that's saying in your mind, hey, walking away means losing. That settling means you got beat. That letting it go means they won. And ego has a need to be right. Ego needs the last word. Ego needs everyone to know that you were wronged. But there's a trap here. And that trap is that ego just dresses itself up a bit as principle. We tell ourselves we're principled. But in a lot of cases, that's really just ego in disguise. It tells you this isn't about pride. It's about truth. It's about fairness. It's about standing up for yourself. And sometimes that's real. But most of the time it's just ego again dressed up. So how do you then deal with it? First, I think you have to name it. What do I mean? When you can't let something go, ask yourself one really honest question. And that question is, do I actually need this outcome or does my ego need it? Sometimes just asking it out loud changes things altogether. Second, redefine what winning is. Like winning isn't getting the last word. Winning is keeping your peace, keeping your focus, keeping your time pointed on what matters. When you turn down the volume, when you lower the noise and you're able to keep your peace and your focus, you're winning. Walking away from a debate or a fight that doesn't that those things that don't serve you, that's not weakness. It's actually a great sign of control. I mean, one would argue that it's the opposite of weakness. It's strength. The third way to address ego is to play the tape forward. What do I mean when I say play the tape forward? A year from now, will this even register? Will this even matter? Will you remember who was right? The reality is almost never. I mean, if you forecast anything out a year from now, what feels so important, you digging your heels in or you making that move that's going to create more noise in your world, a year from now, it's not likely to even matter. The thing your ego is screaming about today is something you probably won't even think about next summer. When you could separate your worth from being right, the volume knob gets a lot easier to turn down. And that's because your attention might be the scarcest thing that you own. It's scarcer than money. It might be scarcer than time, even. Like you can make more money, you can create more time on your schedule by better managing that schedule. But the bandwidth you spend feeding your ego on a fight that doesn't matter, you don't get that back. Surprisingly or not so surprisingly, the wealthiest people I know, the calmest, the most effective leaders I know, they're not the ones who win every battle. They're the ones who actually choose almost none of them. In other words, they choose not to even fight battles. They've made peace with not being right all of the time. So they can turn the volume all the way up on the few things that actually move the ball down the field. And that's the skill, knowing what deserves to be loud versus always having to treat those things that don't deserve the volume up, treating them as something that deserves attention. But the skill is knowing what truly deserves to be loud. Here's what I want you to try this week, this weekend, whenever it is that you're listening to this podcast. Pick one thing that's been living rent free in your head. Maybe it's a conflict or a grudge or a deal that you keep circling back to. And I want you to ask yourself two questions. Is this my strategy talking or my ego? That's question one. Is this my strategy talking or my ego? And question two, if I turn the volume all the way down on this, I walked away or I settled it or I let it go. If I turn the volume all the way down on this, what would it actually cost me? Most of the time, the true answer is, the honest answer is, it'll cost you a lot less than you think. And what you'd gain, which is that space or that calm or that focus, that's worth just so much more. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.